So hello everybody, here we go, stand up on stage. I'll just hit the black button. Remember the most important button on PowerPoint? The black button, because all of the attention comes to you where the focus should be. And so that's important. So hello everybody, it's a great pleasure to see many of you again. I've been seeing you all for some years now. And I think, Harry, great to see you there. Harry's one of the reasons that I keep on coming back to Bayer, because he's just around the corner from me in Vienna, and always a pleasure to go and see. And it really has been a very exciting time working with Bayer over the years. For those of you who don't know me, over the past 4 years, I have done training with Bayer, originally through Christoph. Christoph brought me in because we met years and years ago on a presentation skills seminar, and then like a good salesperson, I carried on sending mails for 10 years until something finally worked. I think he must have got so depressed with all of these mails and finally had forgiveness. So I thank you for that. For those of you who don't know me, the Business Partnering Program is a program that has been rolled out for a lot of the IT functions. It is all on an e-learning program. It is all paid up. So if you want to find it, ask Matthias and he will send you the links. There's a good 10 or 12 hours of video material that you can use for yourselves. You can share it with your IT departments. And the purpose of it is understanding the IT business partnering skill from a soft skills perspective. Okay, as Matthias said, I work for a couple of different industries. I work a lot with pharmaceutical companies, Bayer, Bayer Healthcare, Eli Lilly, Novartis, Amgen, GE Healthcare in the past have been clients for various topics like speaker training, team building, and other leadership skills. I also work a lot in the FMCG environment. That stands for fast-moving consumer goods, which means Henkel, very close to Henkel's just around the corner here in Düsseldorf, and BASF, smaller companies like Lireco, Kevo, and industrial manufacturing companies, companies that produce stuff for different types of markets. And also, I do a lot of work in the IT environment, so IBM, Dassault Systèmes, Lenovo, IT companies, but generally small to medium-sized IT solution providers in local towns. A lot of sales training and solution sales training in that environment. So the context and topic of today's session is keeping the end customer in mind, and that's what I'd like to focus on. And to begin this, what I would like you to do is I would like you to look at the person next to you. I'd like you to try and work in groups of 2, please. And so if you're finding it difficult to work in a group of 2, then a 3 will be okay too. And I would just like you quickly, could you tell these people, the people who you are sitting next to, something about yourself that is private and personal, okay? But please, not illegal, okay? And not too private and not too personal, but something that they do not know about you, okay? Have approximately 1 minute for this exercise. 3, 2, 1, begin. Final 10 seconds. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. At the end of our 45 minutes, we will come back to this. So, good. You've now shared a little bit of personal information, and this sharing of personal information will have value for you later in the process. But first, what I'd like to move into now is the topic of keeping the customer in mind. And yeah, let's have a look at this. So what I'm going to do first is tell you a story about a schizophrenia patient family group. Yeah? Those of you who know my sense of humor will think that there is definitely a joke coming now, but actually not. One of my jobs is I do presentation skills training. Now, I can see a corporate environment in front of me. I guarantee all of you have been through at least one presentation skills program in your lives. Some of you two, very often 3 of you. So you remember that seminar, the one with the cameras? There's 10 participants, there's a camera, you get filmed doing a presentation, and you have to then watch the film. Yes? I need nods of yes. Okay, good. Yeah. So you've all been there, you've all seen this, you've all done it. So, in the pharmaceutical environment, there is a thing which is called a patient's event or a doctor's event, where the pharmaceutical company will host a big event and they will invite all of their physicians to this event. Why? Education. So, they invite them to show them the latest data. Yeah, this is the official reason they invite them. And compliance suggests that, but that's a different story. 20 years ago, they used to invite them to show the data to Hawaii or to very nice places. But, today it's Industriegebiet Mainz, if they're lucky. So the locations have changed. But the principle is the same. So the physicians get invited by the pharmaceutical companies to an event. And during that event, they go through lots of different presentations and they understand the way that the data is used. My company, or a company that I was working with at the time, was called Speaker Medica. And we did speaker training for physicians at medical conferences. Yeah? So our job was doing small keynote speeches and practice sessions for presentation skills for the doctors themselves. So my customer was the brand manager of the pharmaceutical company. His customers were his internal stakeholders, and eventually it was the sales department and the marketing department, and at the end of the line you had the doctors themselves. Yeah? And the doctors themselves would do presentation skills. Yeah? Now, you have done a presentation skills program in the past. Do you know any doctors and physicians yourselves? Yeah? Yeah? How many presentation skills programs do they go through in the course of their career? Not that many. Normally, you can count it on no hands at all. Very, very little education. Yeah? I don't know if you know the status of medical education in university at the moment, but in the University of Vienna, in the Medical University of Vienna, they still don't do presentation skills for doctors. Yeah? So some things take a long time before they change. And so there's always this ethical dilemma of whose responsibility is it to train the doctors in presentation skills, but that's besides the point. Our job at this time, before it was considered to be non-compliant, was to train the doctors in presentation skills so that they could do what? Yeah? Why do doctors need to present better? Interactive question. What was the intention of training the doctors to teach better, to be able to present better?
To talk to the patients in a way which can get them
So one reason was that's right. One reason was that the doctors or physicians needed to do small presentations to patient groups. So groups of patients who would come and visit them at the practice, and they would do it in a presentation style rather than in a one-to-one meeting style. To improve the message that they were sending, so that it wasn't a medical message, but it was a more personalized and patient-like message, something that they could understand. Any other reasons that doctors would need to present in a formal style? Super, thank you very much.
Yeah, so the doctors could also convince their peers in presentations and settings like that.
Okay, so peer group presentations was a very important one. Doctors very often needed to go to other conferences, and during those conferences, they would present their own perspective of the data, their own tests, and they would convince others. Yes, and there was one other reason why doctors needed presentation skills. Yes?
Maybe also to focus.
To keep the focus, certainly, yeah, so that it wasn't getting lost in data. If you could just throw it behind you a couple of seats.
So to maybe act also as a key opinion leader and to be, yeah.
Yes, so to act as a key opinion leader, and when they became a key opinion leader, again, they were given the opportunity to speak in a couple of different environments. Environment number one in peer group sessions, environment number two, and the most common environment in universities where they were teaching other students to learn about their skills. Yeah? So that's the context, that's the scenario. My customer was the brand manager. Our services were bringing value to the brand manager because they brought value to the overall event, which meant the event satisfaction increased across the whole group of spectators or audiences. And this was the doctors themselves and the organizational staff and the other stakeholders within the pharmaceutical company that was running it. So my customer was very clear. So we were in we were in a conference in Lisbon, and we were doing 10 trainers with 10 assistants and 1,000 different doctors, and we had a whole morning to train everybody up in very quick presentation skills. And one of the groups came in, and they were a schizophrenia patient family group. Yeah? And so this was a little bit of a shock because everybody else was a typical doctor or a physician, but all of a sudden we had this group of ladies come into the room. And there were literally 6 ladies and one young chap. And the 6 ladies were all between the ages of 63 and 82. Yeah? Literally, there was one 82-year-old lady in there. She was helped by the other old ladies to come into the room. And they all sat down. They were extremely loud. They were extremely funny. They were laughing all of the time, arguing all of the time. They were from Tel Aviv. Yeah? And I was looking at these ladies going, who are you? So it was a very different type of participant. Yeah? In fact, it was a little bit like a cuckoo. You know the cuckoo? Yeah? I mean, it just did not fit within this environment at all. It was a completely... And they said, well, we are actually a patient. So the doctors present to groups like us. Yeah? We are the end customer. Yeah? And I said, very, very interesting. So it was very interesting to present to these ladies. And at one stage I asked them, but ladies, why do you need to present? Why do you need to present? Any guesses? No, more important than that. Advocacy for other patients. So who would their target group be? They have to present to people like themselves. No. No, not presenting to other players. No. Insurance providers. No. No. That might have come next. No, but this was a higher calling. Huh? Their families? No, they found it useful there. But they had a very specific target for their presentation. One specific target. People with the same disease? No. Huh? The banks? Friends? No. Pharmaceutical industry? Not important. Who's more important than... Huh? Something to do with the young guy. He was a patient, actually. No? Sorry. The government. And what is the government in Israel? The Knesset. And what does the Knesset spend money on? Well, the Knesset is like every government at the moment. They spend money on guns, right? They spend money on security. They don't spend money on schizophrenia. They don't even recognize it. So this group of ladies, they had a plan, they had a target, and they said, the reason that we need your skills is because next week, for the next 6 weeks, we have got a series of presentations where our job is to lobby the Knesset to stop spending money on what they spend money on normally and start spending a little bit of their budget on us and on the recognition of the disease within Israel. Pretty cool, huh? And I was like, I'm helping them to do this. Yeah? It was the first time in my professional career that I actually felt as if I was doing something valuable. Yeah? It's true. I work with a lot of corporate environments. It's pretty difficult to feel the value sometimes, right? The next meeting comes along. So it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And it certainly changed the way that I approach my work in the presentation skills environment, certainly changed the way that I approach my work for this particular group of clients, and made the whole thing a lot more serious. And obviously you don't need to go into the emotional factors of it at all, but as soon as you know why you're doing something and you're confronted with why you're doing something, then the level of seriousness that you give to the job changes to quite a large degree. Okay. So, now, the next topic that I would like to look at is called the principle of liking. Yeah? Because the principle of liking is very closely connected to the principle of knowing the end customer. Yeah? And the principle of liking is from one of the principles of persuasion by a Dr. Robert Cialdini, and he's quite a famous institutional psychologist who focuses on the question of how do you get people to say yes to your requests. Yeah? So I do need 2 volunteers. Yeah? Could I ask, Meg, could you guys volunteer? You just need to stand up. You don't need to say anything. And you come and stand up as well. Great. So, terrific. So, here is, you just stand so that people can see you. This is Sally. No, you're not Sally, you're Meg. This is Meg, and this is Pablo. Pablo. Yeah? Meg and Pablo. Yeah? And now we need a boss. You look like a boss. Yeah? So, come up here and stand. Okay. You just stand here. I've forgotten your name. Andre? Misha. Misha from Russia. Yeah, the Russians are different. They have Russian soul. Is different from other soul. Yeah? It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so Misha is Meg and Pablo's boss. Yeah? So you're their boss. Yeah? Now, Pablo and Meg are good. They're very good. Yeah? Misha has got 25 direct reports. Bit of a strange situation, but he's got 25 direct reports. Is it common in... there we go. And Pablo and Meg are both... They're his 2 direct reports. They govern the other 12 or 13 people in each team, and they are extremely good. Yeah? Now, the problem is, or there isn't a problem, but while Pablo is good, Meg is brilliant. Yeah? Okay? Don't take it personally, okay? Pablo is brilliant. I mean, he's good. He's fantastic. He does everything. He's really good. But Meg is just brilliant, you know. She's got the timekeeping, she's got the prioritization, she's got the strategic, she can analyze, she can do the reporting, she's conscientious. Yeah? Right? It's just, you know, there is... It's okay, it's okay. I know you do the same for me. It's okay. And so in terms of quality, there really is no real comparison, but they're both extremely good. Now, there is one difference, yeah? Misha has a jour fixe every week. In that jour fixe, Misha says, this is where we are going, this is how we're going to get there, and this is how you're helping me. Yeah? So Misha is perfect leadership material. Yeah? This is my strategy. This is how you're helping me get there. This is, you know, leadership principles, very, very important. So Misha's doing his job very well by setting out the strategy and telling his guys how their work is helping him achieve his targets. Yeah? Okay. At the end of this meeting, Pablo will always go up to Misha and say, Misha, brilliant idea. Yeah, I've got a plan, I've got a program which is directly aligned with your plan. Okay? So Pablo will invariably do this. Meg will not. Because she looks at Pablo and she says, she doesn't like, you know, she doesn't do this. Pablo will always go up to Misha and say, your strategy, your plan, my plans are aligned with your plans. Yeah? Meg will say, I'm not doing that. And sometimes Meg and Pablo will have words, and Meg will call Pablo names. Undiplomatic names. You know the kind of, I think teacher's pet is probably the most diplomatic. Do you have a word for that in your language? Yeah, you can think of, we don't need to, yeah. You can write it down on a flip chart later if you want a whole list of, yeah? And so Pablo will say, no, you know, I'm not sucking up to the boss. She said, yes, you are. He said, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, you know, that's your plan. I've got something that's aligned with it. Okay? 2 years later, Misha, you have to promote one of your staff. Okay. Who are you going to promote? In the real world. You will promote Meg. No, you won't. Thank you very much. You can sit down. In the real world, Pablo gets the job. Yeah? In the real world, because for a long time, Pablo has constantly been saying, this is your direction, this is where you're trying to go. This is my direction. This is where I'm trying to go. Our two directions are aligned. Yeah? And so one of the principles of liking is common direction and moving in the same direction. So let me just see. So how to use the principle of liking. People like people who are similar to them. Similarities is a very important concept of liking. You know, we look for similarities. We say, you go sailing, I go sailing. That's something that we can speak about. You play chess, I play chess. That's something we can speak about. You meet somebody walking around that walking track in Philadelphia. You know the Bayer Philadelphia? The thing that you can walk around, you can walk for hours around this. You meet somebody else walking, you always go walking, you end up walking together and finding the times to go walking together. Similarities are very important. So looking for similarities and offering genuine praise is a way of understanding and using similarity. People like people who cooperate with them in the same or similar directions. And this is fundamentally the most important principle of liking. So to understand where they are going, to understand what their objectives are, and to understand what's important to them is possibly, arguably, the most important principle of partnership that there is. Certainly a very important principle of influence. And in terms of understanding your end customer, I work in a world where we very often understand the customer right next to us and maybe their boss's wishes. But the actual people, the users at the end of the line, do we really understand what their direction is and what their ambitions are and where they're trying to go? This is the principle of liking that can be very important in terms of understanding the end customer. Okay, and final point there, it's more important for you to like them than it is for them to like you. Yeah? In terms of liking, finding somebody you like is more important in terms of influence. Okay. So, we've got a couple of examples now of how this idea of keeping the end customer in mind is used within various industrial examples. So I have a couple which come from customers that I work with, and one of them is Volvo. Yeah? So Volvo has got a vision statement at the moment, which is, quite a fundamentally basic and simple vision statement. It says, nobody dies in a Volvo by 2020. Yeah? And so this is a phrase that has come through a lot of ideas. And if you look at this slogan, and then if you look at the web page behind it, and a lot of their marketing activity, the whole thing is related to people and gives you examples of people. So the element of humanity, the element of this is made by humans. I love that quote. It's made by humans. It's like, oh, wow. Who else made it? I think that's, I think this was a revelation for me. But it really underlines a big change. If you looked at the Volvo targeting and marketing slogans from 6 years ago or longer, it was very different. They have done a big change in terms of let us put the individual family member in the focus. And then scrolling through the website, you see case study after case study after case study of individuals and peoples at different age groups. There's an 18-year-old, a 23-year-old, a 37-year-old, a 64-year-old with a picture, a profile, a life situation, trying to tie their product in to examples of how end customers use their products. So in terms of marketing and advertising, it is being seen as the direction to go for a lot of companies. And, making sure nobody dies in a Volvo by 2020 is something that can tie in every layer and every person within the organization into a common target and a common direction. Any questions there? Okay. So, another example is shopper marketing. Yeah? And this is an FMCG example. Shopper marketing, is that something you're aware of? Yeah, as a concept? Okay. Shopper marketing is something that has come into the fast-moving consumer goods environment over the past 5 years, and it is turning around the approach to what category managers and trade marketeers and marketing organizations in FMCG, the way that they look at their customers. And what they effectively do is they go to the shopper at the end of the day and they ask them a lot of questions. And it's not, well, they think it will revolutionize what the industry does. At the moment, it has just changed a lot of things because of some of the following consequences, yeah, or some of the following results. So, here we can see All in the Family, 1973, and American Idol in 2005. Did anybody remember a TV series called All in the Family? Yes, yeah? Do you know how many people would watch this TV program in 1973? In America? Millions? 100 million? It was 50 million. Yeah? It was the highest rated program in America in 1973. 50 million people would watch every single episode of this program. 2005, American Idol is the highest rated program in the US. How many people are watching it? 20 million. So less. Okay. It's actually 12 million. Yeah? 12 million people are watching the most famous TV show in America in 2005 versus 50 million in 1973. Why? There's more choice. There's masses of more choice. There are so many more things that you can watch. More Netflix, less TV. Yeah? My kids don't even watch Netflix anymore. It's just YouTube and whatever they can find on it. Yeah? And so the choice is just has increased dramatically. Yeah? So the number of retail channels has dramatically increased. There's been a huge increase in the places where you can get your stuff. So dollar stores or €1 shops or 1 shilling shops or £1 stores, mass merchandisers, grocery chains, online companies. From 10 shops visited, 3 shops were used 70% of the time. So one particular family member would go to 10 shops, but in general, she would purchase 70% of all of the things that she needed from 3 specific shops. And this is where it gets interesting. 75% of all purchase decisions are made in-store or on-site. So 3/4 of all of the decision-making is not made until the shopper is in the shop itself. Yeah? And this is very significant. So among consumer shoppers, 68% are brand switchers. So what does this say for customer loyalty? Yeah? 68% change their mind, 26% are loyal to a particular retailer, and only 5% actually demonstrate loyalty to a brand. Different industry. Yeah?
Maybe also on-site, you refer to websites as a site.
Absolutely. Yeah? On-site. Referring to the website and the technology channels that are available for people to exercise their decision-making. And so that location is clear. So shopper marketing is the phenomenon that has come into, to capture this, to observe it, and then to understand it, and then decide where this needs to go next. So we have a couple of environments within my environment, so training and education, which is how to react to some of these things. And one of the topics is storytelling, yeah, which effectively means making it personal. Storytelling is a seminar format. Yeah? So in the 1970s, the most popular seminar was project management. And the second most popular was team building. Yeah? In the 1980s, project management, team building. In the early 1990s, project management, team building. So project management has always been number one. It still is number one in terms of investment. But in the early 1990s, team building dropped from position number 2 to position number 23 or something. It went boom. Any ideas why? The culture of the people and email. The rise of email, the drop of team building. Email increased, team building expense, team building investment dropped completely. Yeah? And so nobody invested in having happy teams anymore. All of this high-performing team culture, who cares? We've got email, just send them a mail. You don't like him anymore, just send him a mail, it's okay, You really don't like him, write it in caps. It's fine, So that was a very interesting change. Interestingly enough, the team building is rising again as an investment. Still quite low. It's still on position number 14. But any guesses why it's rising? Can anybody explain the rise in investment of team building seminars? No. No, it's an IT solution. Nope, artificial intelligence. No, I'll make it easy for you. The rise of Agile and Scrum methodologies used within the IT environment has led to a rise in the investment in team building seminars. Because Scrum, when it's done well, is actually a team-building approach, and people realize that they need to invest in the communication between the Scrum teams in order to make them work effectively. There's been a significant rise in investment into team building or similar type activities simply based on the rise of Scrum. So, believe it or not, IT is doing something good for people development. So, no, it's true. Use Scrum and Agile methods in your working environments. Tell your business customers about them, because when it's done well, it adds value to the business experience. So, IT and whiteboarding, breaking down complex ideas into a story or flow that it is easy for the individual to follow. In the IT space, there is a whiteboard, and the whiteboard is used to capture ideas and to explain complicated architectures. It's a way of taking the customer by the hand and explaining things that are normally quite complicated in an easier to understand way. The context of legal, there is a large area of storytelling investment in the legal environment where lawyers are being asked to use analogies, which means past cases, in order to anticipate future results, which means deliver bad news. So if you go to a lawyer and you say, I want to sue this guy, then he will say, rather than saying it won't work, it is better to say, well, let me tell you about a particular story about a man like you who sued a man like that. And the approach of storytelling allows the lawyer to connect better with that customer, because they connect at a different level and they connect it in a way that the person can understand and accept better. Software development is an excellent example of keeping the end customer in mind. Something specifically from your space, user requirement definition. I think we've got the V model here. You all know the V model, or you've seen something similar to it before. And step number 1 in the V model for software development is understanding user requirements. User requirements, user cases, user meetings, user interviews. Remember these situations? Remember those interesting meetings where you're speaking to an end user and you're saying, so, what do you actually do, and how is it going to have an impact on the piece of software that we need to write over the next 1 to 2 years? Which means the principle of creating a piece of software or a larger IT solution, and the principle of keeping the end customer in mind is already very well embedded within some particular principles. In many cases, it's simply seeing the value of that in terms of, connecting with the end customer and making sure that you are close to them as possible at all times. So, there we go, a scary picture, And this is one of my favorite stories. Any questions quickly before we move into this final piece? Great. So, a radiologist. Is anybody a radiologist here? No? Nobody missed their vocation? No. Does anybody know any radiologists? You do? Cheng? Could somebody throw him the dice? Great. Yeah, throw it nice and hard. Yeah. So,
I do know one, yeah.
What does a radiologist do?
Analyzing pictures and giving feedback to, maybe feedback is the wrong term, analysis results to patients.
Okay. And so the job of a radiologist is analysis. And the analysis that they do is not based on looking at a person. It is based on looking at a picture and looking at a series of charts and graphs. So the radiologist can actually do their job without ever seeing the patient. And so there was a very, very interesting piece of research done. There was a doctor who said, I wonder if there is a difference between if we do the radiologist job in the way that we normally do it, and if we do it in a different way, where the customer or the patient is a bit more in mind, is there a difference in the result? Yeah? Is there a difference in the diagnosis? So how do you think they did this? How do you think the doctor, introduced the patient into the process? A picture. Yeah? So they put a little picture there. So when they sent over the diagnosis, now you had a little picture and a little biography. Yeah? So this is John, 53 years old, lives in Massachusetts, works down the local garage. So little biography, little picture with the graphs. So they were not expecting the results that followed. When a photograph was attached to the patient's scan, reports were significantly more thorough in all cases, sometimes to the extent of over 60%. 60% longer report about a specific patient case because there was a photograph and because there was a bio. Reports were longer. There were more recommendations made. So the radiologists were looking at the data with the picture of the patient, and before they signed it off, they would look at that picture and they would say, maybe there's something else that I can say. Maybe there's a different recommendation that I can make. Have I thought of everything that I can think of? So they were stretching themselves to really make sure they added value. More incidental findings were recorded. They discovered more. They discovered more, before they just had the chart and just had the graph. It was taking them something like 3 minutes to do an analysis in a simple situation. Afterwards, they were spending more time, up to 70% more time on the same graph, purely because the picture and the bio was there. Photos helped them to relate better to the patients, and they themselves, they said they felt more like a doctor. Yeah? They felt more, the emotional attachment to what they were doing was very much in the room as well. And so I find this a very powerful example. That's the source material, by the way. I can send you this afterwards so that you can have a look at the original story. I found this a very powerful example of, the practical application of what does it mean to keep your end customer firmly in mind, and what are some of the consequences of this. Okay. The next question then is how to do this. How do you keep the end customer in mind? And just to conclude this, your original beginning exercise where you told something personal about yourself to somebody, what I would like you to do now is very quickly to merge these groups. So if you were in a group of 2, now become a group of 4 or 5 with another group of 2 or 3. And I would like to answer yourself the following question: who am I going to allow to look after my house and my cat when I go away on holiday? Okay? You're going away on holiday in 3 weeks' time. You need somebody to look after your house and your cat. Who are you going to ask to look after your house and your cat? 3, 2, 1, begin. Please get into the groups, larger groups. Okay, so you can take your seats again quickly, please. If the theory worked correctly, then the answer you should have given as to the question, who do I trust to look after my cat and my house? The correct answer is Meg. There we go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to allow me to speak about keeping the end customer in mind. I know that you all have a very good approach to end customers anyway, but obviously the next step is to ask questions, to be curious, and to ask your customers who their customers' customers are, and to try and get a feeling for what happens at the very end of the line of your products and services. So, we will move now into a little bit of a description of what is going to happen next. So, we're just moving to the next slide. It's the black button. So, in a second, we will see a slide come up with names and places. Over the next 3 hours, we have the following possibility. Bayer IT has invited a group of real customers for us to speak to over the following couple of hours. Our real customers are in terms of patients, farmers, and here we can see some of the, so we have a couple of nurses, patients, general practitioners, a couple of vets, and a couple of farmers. Hello, our dear customers. Could you raise your arms, please, so that everybody can see you there? I'll take this opportunity to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming along to be a part of this. And let me just describe how this is going to work. So we will have 10 different positions. It says 12 up here. It is actually 10 different places. And what is going to happen is that the customers will be situated at specific places within the room. And you are going to split into groups of 10 or 12 people and then go from one to the other in 3 different rotations. Yeah? The purpose of the discussion you already know. And sorry, could you go back a slide, please? And so here's the context. We will have 3 meetings lasting for 25 minutes each. There will be approximately 11, 12, 13, 14 people per group. So this we ask you to keep an eye on and keep control of. Please make sure if there are obviously too many people in a group already, don't go to a group that is completely full. The first meeting only, will be arranged by taking a respective post-it at the boarding passes. As you did yesterday, there are 2 pin boards there. These are the boarding passes, and you take one of these post-its, and that will define where and with whom your first meeting will be. After that, though, you are free to decide where you go. But generally speaking, please make sure you distribute yourselves approximately 11 people per table. And also, very important point, some of our customers are better at German and some of our customers are better at English. So if you are an English speaker, please migrate to the English speakers. If you are a German speaker, please migrate to the German speakers. And if you are both, then go where your native language directs you first. And please be prepared to help with translations and understanding wherever you are and whichever group you are with. Okay? Terrific. In that case, feel free to stand up, to go over to the boarding passes and to take your number there. And then we will move into the exercise. Enjoy.